One of the best things you can do to help spot errors is to create test cases where you know the answer in advance, and then check if Code Interpreter arrives at the same answer. Now, this is something that you can use to help build confidence, but also to just check anytime you're working with Code Interpreter. You can throw in a document or a question or something that you're working with that you've already predetermined the answer. And this will help you know that certain things seem to be firing on all cylinders and accurate. Now, I'm going to show you what an example of this looks like. And there's lots of different ways you can go about doing this. Now, over here, what I've done is I have built out a fake car rental receipt. And it looks very, very realistic. Now, I could have gone and taken an actual one, but I wanted to be able to easily go and generate test cases for myself. And using synthetic data that then I eyeball and as a human agree is a good set of synthetic data is a good way to do this. So what do I want to do? I want to generate some synthetic data that has certain properties to it that then I can use to test inside of Code Interpreter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell it to generate a sample receipt from a car rental company that includes all of the various forms of insurance. Now, the reason I'm doing that is over here, I'm going to test in this conversation how well it reasons against the Vanderbilt travel expense policy. And I know that buried in the travel expense policy is somewhere where it says that you cannot get reimbursed for a rental car. Well, you can get reimbursed for the car, but you're not going to get reimbursed for the insurance if you get it. And the reason for that is because there's already insurance as part of Vanderbilt. They already have the insurance. They don't want you to pay the rental car company for it. So if you get that insurance, you haven't followed policy and you're not going to get paid back for it. So I want to test that is the reasoning against the Vanderbilt business and travel expense policy accurate or not. And one way I can do that is I can go and build test cases of data that specifically violate different rules in the policy and then go and see if Code Interpreter catches those issues. So in this case, I've specifically had it generate a synthetic receipt that has that property. Now I could go and generate all kinds of synthetic data, but I've taken this rental car receipt, I turned it into a PDF to make it a little bit more accurate and a little bit more difficult to deal with. And then I have it analyze the receipt and tell me if it complies. Now, really importantly, it points out that the collision damage waiver for domestic travel, the CDW, should be declined as rental vehicles are fully insured through Vanderbilt's insurance portfolio. So this test case is telling me that it has dug out of the policy the appropriate section, identified that this receipt is violating that policy, and now I can use that test case. Now, if I wanted to go back in here and I wanted to do something else, I could just go and edit my prompt. I could generate another test case, or I could keep it all in the conversation. So I might just go and say, well, I'd like to have another test case where I'm going to test the posit that does not include any of the various forms of insurance. And so now I could go and generate the positive test case where I would expect it to pass the Vanderbilt travel expense policy. And we'll look, the nice thing about this is when we go through and we begin generating in one format, if we want to have some more consistency, we're more likely to get more consistency if we keep generating data in the same conversation because it's already providing a pattern. So in this case, we're getting some new charges that are generated. We can see in this case that there's no insurance that's included, whereas over here it has the collision damage waiver, and over here it does not. Then I could take that data and I could put it back in as a new document. And you can generate as many documents, as many synthetic documents as you want to your heart's content, or you can take real documents. Again, this can be a great way when you're trying to pilot and test out, is it right for us to use Code Interpreter? Maybe you don't want to put your real data in it. Maybe you haven't gotten the appropriate legal agreements or privacy things in place to do that. Well, you can generate synthetic data like we're doing here. Then we can take that, bring it back in, and take some public document like the Vanderbilt travel expense policy, which is public and is not sensitive, and then combine it with fake data that ordinarily would be sensitive, like an actual travel expense receipt, and we can test if it's going to work or not. So test cases are an excellent, excellent way to help spot how effective a reason is going. Now, one thing we could also do is at the very beginning of the conversation, we could upload the policy, We could have it do its summarization, and then we could put in all the test cases and see if it passes all of them and is reasoning effectively. And then we could put in the new expense receipt, or we could do it after. But it's a helpful check for us to be more confident. Now, it's not perfect. We have to think of Code Interpreter a lot of times more like a human. There is still the potential of mistakes, but it's a way to help us build confidence and build trust that the result is correct and that the reasoning is correct by having different test cases where we essentially check it. This is the equivalent of when they have a lifeguard on duty at a pool and they throw a dummy into the water while the lifeguard's not watching, and see if the lifeguard spots the dummy and dives in to rescue it. We want to kind of do the same thing with Code Interpreter. We want to throw some dummies in there and make sure that Code Interpreter correctly spots, problems or correctly reasons with that data, that fake data that we provide in there, or correctly reasons with real data where we know the result in advance. So use test cases either with real data or go and generate fake data that has the right format and generate different variations, positive and negative, to be able to check and test that the reasoning is correct and that you're getting the expected outcome.